Thank you for staying with us. Poor power supply in Nigeria is a challenge that has existed for many years. It goes as far back as the 80s, with Nigerians consistently complaining of the setback that inefficiencies in the power sector have caused for small businesses and the country's economy at large. The generation, transmission, and distribution arms of the power sector value chain all have their individual problems. Combined, they have impacted the sector negatively. This year alone, Nigeria witnessed over 10 national grid collapses, throwing millions of households into total darkness. There were also issues of outrageous estimated electricity billing, unavailability of prepaid meters, and even the cost of acquiring it, obsolete equipment that affected the amount of generated electricity that got to customers. But it's not all bad news. This year also, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presided over the further signing of the Presidential Power Initiative Agreement between Nigeria and Germany in Dubai. The move is designed to ultimately add 12,000 megawatts of electricity to the national grid. Well, joining us for this conversation, two gentlemen via Zoom. We have Dr. Ayodele Oni. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we also have joining us in the studio, public affairs analyst Olusegun Okwade. Good morning.
Good morning.
For joining us.
Compliment of the season.
Compliments of the season to you as well. Let me begin with you, Dr. Oni. From your assessment, indeed, what Nigerians want with regards to electricity is stable power. But so much has happened in the course of the year with regards to electricity. We have talked about the number of grid collapses and so many other issues. But what's your assessment of how we have fared as a country with regards to electricity so far?
I think it's been tipsy-turvy. If you look at NERC's quarterly reports, you'd find out that, for example, Q2, we had an ATC&C loss of 38%, 38.41%. But in Q3, it jumped to 39%. So it's been up and down. And there have been gains. For example, the enactment of the Electricity Act is a really good thing, but I always say that the devil is in the detail. I think that's been the most important thing. And for a while, for over 300 days, or for quite a while, there was hardly any grid collapse until Q2 this year. So for a while, until Q2, no grid collapses. And then we've had a number then happen consistently recently. So I think that it's not been great. It's not what we did expect, but I think things can look up if the Electricity Act is well implemented. You know, the idea ultimately is that the aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses are the key problems in the sector. If we can deal with those, metering, electricity theft, if you look at the Electricity Act, it does deal decisively with issues around electricity theft. So if there's proper implementation, if the minister does sit up a bit more and get the right people to provide support, and the states do what they ought to do, and there's synergy. I like the idea of the integrated electricity policy and strategic implementation plan. I understand. I know there was a meeting a few weeks ago to discuss the way forward around those, so that states can work together with the federal government to move the sector forward. But it's not been great, to be honest.
Right, let me stay with you, Mr. Oni. The interesting thing is that, you know, for the TCN actually they boasted of the fact that they had power, they sustained power for 400 days and and counting before the energy collapse. What do you think they did differently at that time that they were not able to sustain, and what would you like to point out for them to have at the back of their mind in order to sustain generation of electricity?
Okay, I think it was actually 335 days, if my calculation or the data I have is correct, because the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission does issue quarterly reports, and I think until Q2 Last year it was 335, I think, till about maybe mid this year rather, when we started to have those collapses. Anyway, that said, the thing is that you can always have temporary measures. If those measures are not ingrained in your system, you will continue to have these collapses. Now, there are many reasons for those collapses we have. At times, it's infrastructure that is insufficient. At times, is imbalance in the network. A major power plant is constrained off or goes off, and then you don't have spinning reserves. You don't have a power plant that can come on when a major plant or a few plants go off. That's one of the reasons. Once you have that imbalance, you'd have grid collapses. So we need to work a lot around our ancillary services, black start capacity, spinning reserves, all of those things that help you maintain a good transmission network. If you don't do that, we'll continue to have that problem, So that's one thing. Secondly, we need to continue the number of transmission projects going on. The issues with the Siemens deal, all of those need to be tidied up. And I always say, without making an excuse for the TCN, we had neglected transmission for many years. I think between 1987 and the mid-2000s, there was no major grid enhancement. So what do you expect? You had the population increase in geometric progression, and you did nothing about the national transmission system. There's the issue around the SCADA. This SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition, some equipment that can detect faults before they even become serious, and you can immediately know where that fault is and immediately deal with it. So it's investment, it's infrastructure, it's good management. So in some of these things, the National Control Center is at Osogbo. I know that there's been some enhancement, there's been some improvement. I know, I think SCADA is now in place and it's partly functional. So all of these have helped improve, but we need to do much more considering the population, considering the volume of electricity that we should have. I think the rule of thumb is a mega for, I think, 1,000 people or so. So if that's the case, then we are many hundreds of thousands of megawatts behind where we should be.